We don't know the extent of the contaminations.
A capsule of Tylenol was laced with cyanide.
Right now, every bottle of medicine you own has a foil seal under the cap. It has a plastic ring around the neck. It has a shrink-wrap band that breaks when you first open it. You've never thought twice about any of that. It's just how medicine comes. But none of it existed before September 29th, 1982. Every single one of those barriers between you and your medication was created because of one person.
Assuming that it could be the cyanide-laced capsule also.
A person who was never caught. A person who was never charged.
But the mystery remained. Who was putting the poison into the Tylenol capsules?
A person who may have been standing in an ordinary Chicago drugstore on an ordinary autumn afternoon, calmly, methodically opening bottles of Tylenol and putting cyanide inside, and then putting them back on the shelf. 7 people died in 3 days in one city. All of them reached for the most trusted medicine in America, the one their parents kept in the cabinet, the one they'd taken 100 times before, and it killed them. And the person who made it kill them has never been identified.
And now the lone suspect is dead. And as News Nation's Alex Capriello asks the question, will these murders ever be solved?
In more than 40 years, with the full resources of the FBI, the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, and one of the largest private companies on earth, nobody has ever been charged. The case is still open. The killer may have died of old age, but before we go any further, I want to plant one question in your mind. Something that investigators have asked for 40 years. Something that has no satisfying answer. The killer put cyanide in bottles from 6 different stores across the Chicago area. 6 stores, multiple trips, multiple bottles. That's not a moment of rage. That's not an impulsive crime. That's a plan. A deliberate, calculated plan that took time, effort, and materials. The question no one has ever answered is, who plans something like this, executes it, watches 7 people die, and then never says a word about it to anyone for the rest of their lives? Remember that question. We'll come back to it. September 1982, Chicago. The city that had spent 3 years in the shadow of John Wayne Gacy, convicted in 1980 of murdering 33 young men, was slowly exhaling. Life was returning to normal. Kids were going back to school. Families were heading into the holiday stretch. And Tylenol, Extra-Strength Tylenol, made by McNeil Consumer Products, a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson, was the best-selling over-the-counter painkiller in the United States. It controlled more than 35% of the non-prescription pain reliever market. It was in virtually every medicine cabinet in America. It was the thing you reached for without thinking. That was its power. And that was precisely what made it the perfect weapon. The extra-strength Tylenol capsule, as opposed to the tablet, was particularly popular in 1982. The gelatin capsule was slick, easy to swallow, and had no unpleasant taste. Millions of people preferred it. And crucially, the capsule could be pulled apart, opened, emptied, refilled, and snapped back together so cleanly that no one could tell it had been touched. The killer knew this. They counted on it. Here is the thing that makes this case unlike almost any other murder case in American history. The killer didn't target anyone specific. They didn't know Mary Kellerman. They didn't know Adam Janus or his brother Stanley or Stanley's wife. They didn't know any of them. The poison was for whoever happened to buy those bottles, whoever was sick, whoever had a headache, whoever was unlucky. And that randomness, that complete, indifferent randomness, is why this case never left Chicago.
7 persons are now dead in the Chicago area as a result of cyanide that's been put in some Tylenol capsules.
It left everyone afraid. because if it could happen there, it could happen anywhere. Mary Kellerman was 12 years old. She woke up on the morning of September 29, 1982, with a sore throat and a runny nose. She told her parents. They kept her home from school. They gave her one extra-strength Tylenol capsule, because that is what you do when your child is sick. Within seconds of swallowing it, her father heard coughing, then silence, then the sound of something hitting the floor. He went to the bathroom door. He said her name. No answer. He opened the door and found his daughter unconscious on the floor, her eyes fixed and dilated. She was pronounced dead at 9:56 that morning. The capsule contained enough cyanide to kill within minutes. Mary Kellerman was the first. That same day, Adam Janus, 27, was a postal worker in Arlington Heights. He'd felt unwell and stayed home from work. On his way back from picking up his children from preschool, he stopped at a Jewel grocery store and bought a bottle of extra-strength Tylenol. He took several capsules after getting home. He walked into his bedroom, collapsed, and fell into a coma.
Our lives just changed forever. When I heard my mom screaming, I ran to him along with my brother. I remember standing by him and just nudging him and just saying, "Wake up, Tata, wake up." But he wouldn't wake up.
He died in the emergency room at Northwest Community Hospital. Doctors initially assumed a massive heart attack, a healthy 27-year-old dead without warning. That same evening, Adam Janus's family gathered at his home to grieve. His brother Stanley, 25 years old, and Stanley's wife Teresa, 19 years old, newly married, were there with the family. At some point, someone reached for the bottle of Tylenol that Adam had left on the counter. Stanley and Teresa both had headaches, understandable given what they'd just learned. They each took a capsule from the same bottle. Within hours, Stanley collapsed. He died that same day. Teresa was taken to the hospital and put on life support. She died 2 days later. 3 members of one family from one bottle in one evening. Mary Reiner, 27, had given birth to her 4th child just 4 days earlier. She was home, exhausted, in the quiet relief of new motherhood, and she took Tylenol for the discomfort. She never woke up. Mary McFarland, 31, a retail worker in Elmhurst, collapsed at her job after swallowing 2 capsules during her shift. And Paula Prince, 35, was a United Airlines flight attendant who had just landed at O'Hare after a long day of work. On her way home, she stopped at the Walgreens on North Wells Street in Old Town and bought a bottle of Tylenol. She went home. She took a capsule. Her sister found her body 2 days later. There was 1 capsule missing from the bottle on her bathroom counter. 7 people, ranging in age from 12 to 35. A child, a postal worker, a newborn's mother, a flight attendant. None of them knew each other. None of them were targeted. All of them made the same ordinary, reasonable decision. They were feeling unwell, so they took Tylenol. That decision killed them in under 24 hours. Here is how close this case came to never being solved as a murder at all. The first deaths appeared to be cardiac events. There was no visible reason, no wound, no obvious cause, for a 27-year-old postal worker to simply drop dead. It was a firefighter, not a detective, who first made the connection. Fire Lieutenant Philip Capitelli, who had responded to the Janus scene in Arlington Heights, was on the phone with a colleague when he heard about young Mary Kellerman's death in a different suburb. He asked one question that would change everything. Did she take Tylenol? That one question, asked by accident, across jurisdictions, by a man who wasn't even a cop, cracked the case open. We'll come back to why that matters. Within hours of that call, testing confirmed the presence of potassium cyanide in the Tylenol capsules from multiple victims' homes.
I'm opening up every single capsule to check for the cyanide.
Meanwhile, the count continues capsule by capsule. The search for the deadly cyanide that has left 7 Chicago area persons dead.
The amounts were enormous, far beyond any accidental contamination. Investigators immediately ruled out the manufacturing process. The bottles had been tampered with after leaving the factory, purchased from stores, opened, poisoned, and returned to the shelves. Someone had walked into at least 6 different stores across the Chicago metropolitan area, bought or replaced bottles of Extra-Strength Tylenol, laced the capsules with cyanide, and returned them. What followed was the largest product recall in American history to that point.
All the bottles of Extra-Strength capsules were removed Friday as part of the nationwide recall.
In a decision that would later be studied in every business school in the world, immediately halted production, pulled 31 million bottles from shelves, and issued a national consumer warning. Before the FDA could mandate a recall, before the government told them to, they acted unilaterally. In the first week after the murders, Tylenol's market share collapsed from 35% to under 8%. The company lost an estimated $100 million in a matter of days. And the public, a nation of people who had a bottle of Tylenol at home, started to ask a question they had never had to ask before. Is the medicine safe? While Johnson & Johnson was managing a catastrophic PR crisis and a grieving public demanded answers, law enforcement was chasing something with almost no precedent in the history of American crime. A killer with no apparent victim, no personal motive, and no forensic trace. In 40 years of investigation, they would develop 2 primary suspects. One died in 2023. One was cleared, and to this day, nobody has been charged. The story of how investigators tried and failed to catch this person is one of the most remarkable and frustrating in American criminal history. Let's go through it. Roger Arnold was a warehouse worker in Chicago. In the wake of the poisonings, a bar owner named Marty Sinclair contacted police. He told them Arnold had been coming into his bar regularly and that Arnold had been behaving erratically, rambling, making disturbing statements. Specifically, Arnold had been overheard at the bar talking about how to kill people with cyanide. He'd become strange since his marriage collapsed. He'd been known to keep cyanide at home. When police searched Arnold's home, they found unregistered firearms, chemistry kits, and books about poison. They did not find cyanide. The evidence was circumstantial, suggestive but not conclusive. He was never charged with the Tylenol murders. What happened next, however, made the case around Arnold even more complicated. After being named publicly as a person of interest, Arnold became convinced that a man named John Stanisha, someone he believed had exposed him to police, was responsible for destroying his life. In 1983, Arnold shot and killed Stanisha on a Chicago sidewalk. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison. Some investigators have called John Stanisha the 8th Tylenol victim. Roger Arnold went to prison for a murder that was a direct consequence of the Tylenol investigation, but he was never charged with the 7 killings. As of 2025, 3 Chicago Police Department detectives still believe Roger Arnold was the Tylenol killer. The evidence remains circumstantial. Roger Arnold is believed to be deceased. The case file remains open.
Arnold was convicted of murdering John Stanisha and sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Before we get to the man who became the FBI's primary suspect for more than 40 years, I want to pause for 10 seconds. Cases like this one, cases that are genuinely unsolved, genuinely complicated, and genuinely matter to how we live, deserve more than one video. This channel covers exactly that. If you're finding this valuable, subscribing takes 2 seconds. Now, back to Chicago, and back to the most extraordinary suspect in this story. October 6, 1982, 1 week after the first death, Johnson & Johnson received a letter, handwritten. The letter was addressed to the company. The writer claimed to be the Tylenol killer. They described the killings in detail that had not yet been made public. They said it had been easy to put cyanide into the capsules, and they made a demand, $1 million. Wire it. If Johnson & Johnson paid, the killing would stop.
There are reports that an extortionist is behind the murders in Chicago.
And he says, if you don't give me $1 million, I'm going to go kill a bunch more.
James William Lewis was born in 1946 in Memphis, Tennessee. By 1982, he was in his mid-30s, living in New York City with his wife, Leanne. He was, by trade, a con man, a talented, calculating fraud artist with a history of financial crimes, including a murder-for-hire accusation in Kansas City that had never been proven. He was also brilliant, a man who built elaborate systems, who understood psychology, who enjoyed the game. When investigators traced the letter, they found Lewis in New York. He had left Chicago shortly before the poisonings. He denied being the killer. He said the letter was an extortion attempt, that he was simply trying to profit from a situation he had nothing to do with.
Soon, a man named James Lewis was under arrest. Lewis was charged with sending Tylenol's manufacturer, Johnson & Johnson, a letter.
In 1984, he was convicted of attempted extortion. He was sentenced to 20 years. He served 13 and was released in 1995. After his release, Lewis and Leanne moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts, where they ran a small accounting and tax business. He became, to outward appearances, a quiet, elderly man. But investigators never stopped watching him. The FBI raided his home in 2009, citing advances in forensic technology and a complete review of all case evidence. They took his computer. They found documents.
And now he realizes that he made a big mistake by telling me, or admitting to me, he wrote it before any of the victims died. This was a big-time admission.
In 2022, the Chicago Tribune spent a year reviewing the case and produced an 8-episode podcast, Unsealed, the Tylenol Murders, that became one of the most downloaded investigative podcast series in the country. Lewis gave his final public interview for a Netflix documentary before his death. He died at home in Cambridge, Massachusetts on July 9, 2023. He was 76. He never confessed. Here is what this case is really about. It is not about who bought Tylenol and who bought cyanide. It's not about a letter or a conviction for extortion, or a man walking free from prison and living quietly in Massachusetts for nearly 30 years. This case is about what happens when someone commits the perfect crime, not because they were smarter than law enforcement, but because they had the one thing no investigator can beat: silence. And in that silence, the entire architecture of how America packages and sells medicine was quietly, permanently rebuilt around the shape of one unknown person's crime. Let that sit for a moment. Then let's look at what we actually know about James Lewis. Remember the firefighter, Philip Capitelli, who asked the one question that cracked the case open. Did she take Tylenol? Here's what that detail reveals about the killer's psychology. The poisonings were spread across 6 stores, across multiple suburban jurisdictions, different police departments, different counties, different hospitals. If Capitelli hadn't made that cross-jurisdictional phone call by accident, those deaths might have been recorded as cardiac events, at least long enough for the bottles to be sold, disposed of, and the trail to go completely cold. The killer understood, or hoped, that the fragmented nature of suburban law enforcement would keep the murders from being connected. that is not the thinking of someone impulsive. That is the thinking of someone who planned this very carefully. James Lewis had planned things carefully his entire life. The evidence against Lewis, while never sufficient for a criminal charge, is striking when laid out in sequence. The extortion letter arrived at Johnson & Johnson before the public had been told that the deaths were linked to Tylenol poisoning. That means Lewis, if he sent the letter, knew about the poisonings before the connection was public knowledge. The Chicago Tribune's review of the postmark, using modern technology, confirmed the letter was sent before the Tylenol link was announced. Either Lewis was the poisoner, or he had inside knowledge that no one has ever explained. For years, investigators couldn't clearly establish why Lewis would target Johnson & Johnson specifically. The answer, when it finally came, was devastating. In 1974, Lewis's 5-year-old daughter, Toni Ann Lewis, died from a congenital heart defect. She had undergone surgery. The sutures used to repair her heart were marketed under the name Proline. Proline was trademarked by Ethicon, a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson. FBI investigators, during the Task Force 2 review in 2006, reviewed Toni's medical records and confirmed that her sutures had torn and that the company that made them was, ultimately, Johnson & Johnson. The theory: James Lewis blamed Johnson & Johnson for the death of his only child. James Lewis is gone. Roger Arnold is believed to be gone. The physical evidence that existed has been tested, retested, and exhausted. And yet, as of this recording, the case is still technically open. Because there is one thing that remains. Something that has been sitting in an evidence locker, or in a database, or in a sealed file for more than 40 years. The case, investigators will tell you, is never fully closed. Stay with me, because the end of this story is not about who did it. It's about what they changed and what they created. That part, the part that lives in your medicine cabinet right now. After his extortion conviction, Lewis met several times with investigators and provided detailed sketches, diagrams, showing exactly how to open, poison, and reseal Tylenol capsules. He provided flowcharts on how to carry out the poisonings without getting caught. He said he was helping find the real killer. Investigators said those drawings amounted to a confession by someone who knew exactly how it was done, because they had done it. There was no physical evidence linking him to the bottles. His wife Leanne always maintained his innocence. He died of natural causes in 2023, the primary suspect in 7 murders, having never been charged with any of them. Within weeks of the Tylenol murders, Congress passed the Federal Anti-Tampering Act, signed into law by President Ronald Reagan in October 1983. Tampering with consumer products became a federal offense, punishable by life in prison or the death penalty if a death resulted. Johnson & Johnson's response to the crisis became one of the most studied corporate decisions in history. They didn't wait for government orders. They recalled everything. They halted production. They introduced a new triple-sealed bottle, a foil seal under the cap, a plastic seal around the neck, and a shrink-wrap band over the cap. Within a year, Tylenol's market share had recovered almost entirely because the public trusted the response. The CEO of Johnson & Johnson, James Murk, told his board, "People will be able to trust that bottle." He was right. The Tylenol capsule, in its original open and reseal form, effectively ceased to exist. Every bottle of medicine in America, every bottle in the world, was permanently, structurally altered by what one person did with cyanide in a Chicago suburb in the autumn of 1982. The copycat crimes that followed were almost as devastating. In 1986, A woman named Diane Ellsroth in New York died after taking cyanide-laced Tylenol. A second poisoning, never solved. That triggered another recall, another wave of national panic, and the final elimination of the two-piece capsule as a mass-market product form. The Tylenol murders didn't just change packaging. They changed the entire commercial pharmaceutical industry's risk architecture forever. There's one more detail about James Lewis that investigators have never fully made public, and that the Netflix documentary and Chicago Tribune investigation have brought back to the surface.
I was 8 years old. I remember my mom coming out of the bathroom and saying, "I feel weird."
They said, "My brother Adam got a heart attack."
When Lewis met with investigators after his conviction and drew those diagrams, those meticulous step-by-step instructions on how to poison and reseal capsules, investigators were struck by something. The diagrams weren't guesses, they weren't theoretical. The precision in those drawings was the precision of someone who had done this specific thing. It was the work of a man who couldn't stop showing how smart he'd been. Former U.S. Attorney Jeremy Margolis said it plainly when Lewis died. "I was saddened to learn of James Lewis's death, not because he's dead, but because he didn't die in prison." At the beginning of this video, I asked you to hold a question. Who plans something like this? Here's the honest answer, 43 years later. We don't know. We may never know. James Lewis took whatever he knew to a house in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then to the grave.
Police in Cambridge, Massachusetts confirmed they found 76-year-old James Lewis dead in his home overnight.
Roger Arnold, if he was responsible, did the same. And the 7 people who died, Mary Kellerman, Adam Janis, Stanley Janis, Teresa Janis, Mary McFarland, Paula Prince, Mary Reiner. Those 7 people never got the one thing that crime victims are supposed to get in this country. They never got a name. They've saved countless lives since 1982. But they're not justice, and they never will be. The case is still listed as open by the Arlington Heights Police Department, which took lead jurisdiction. Investigators believe the killer bought the cyanide commercially. It was widely available in industrial and photographic settings in 1982. They believe the tampering happened at or near the stores, in a car or restroom nearby. They believe the killer acted alone. They believe the killer is probably dead. But they have never said those words officially, because officially, the case is open. The next time you open a bottle of Tylenol or aspirin or any medicine, and you peel back that foil seal, or twist off that plastic ring, or break that shrink wrap band, remember what you're holding. A bottle that was built around a crime that was never solved, a crime that, in a sense, changed everything about how the world works and never produced a single arrest. Mary Kellerman was 12 years old. She had a sore throat. Her parents gave her medicine, and that is the most devastating sentence in this entire case. Her parents gave her medicine. Because that is what parents do.